Here we go. This is episode 14? Yeah, 14 on the Universal broadcast by me, Brother Jack Alexander. We're going to start in prayer. So, in the name of Allah, the entirely beneficent, the entirely merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, sovereign of the day of recompense. It is you, Allah, whom we serve, and it is you, Allah, whom we ask for help. Guide us, Allah, to the straight path, the path of those upon whom thou hast bestowed favour, not of those who have evoked your anger, nor those who are astray. Alright. There is so much to point out in the world right now. There's so much to do in the world right now. There's so much to heal right now. There's so much to be there's so much left to be exposed right now. There's so much being exposed right now. There is so much difference in the world right now. There is so much poverty in the world right now. There is so much strife in the world right now. There is so much doubt. There is so much confusion. There is so much space on the earth right now. There is so much greed. There is so much, opportunity. There is so much to be done. But what is it that must be done? What is it that must be done? What do we have as our duty, in this little life, what do we have to do, brothers and sisters? What is it that we have to do? What must be done? Okay. So, first and foremost, we should always remember that things happen in Allah's time and on Allah's time. But there's something that's, to me, not quite adding up. And it's that we seem to be spiraling. Remember when the minister talked about the woman who unspun her yarn after spinning it so strong? It reminds me of that. It's like we're in a time that things are really shocking. Like what's going on? What is going on is quite shocking. You've got Satan versus Satan, kingdom against kingdom. But the Bible does say, if Satan cast out Satan, how then can his kingdom stand? How then shall his kingdom stand? And right now, particularly in America, you have so much strife going on. You have so much chaos, and really we have to unite, beloved brothers and sisters. We have to unite on the basis of truth. We have to come together on the basis of truth. We all have something in common. Pardon me. We all have something in common. And that is that we've all been subject to this kind of world. We're all born in sin and we're all shaped in iniquity. And we're in a world where division is happening. Separation is happening. It says in the Bible that father will be against son, and it'll be two against one, three against two, two against one. Point being is that in our very homes, there is division. Even even in the nation, there's a lot of division, in the nation of Islam. And we're going through a real birthing process here that we're going to have to be strong enough to go through. And I hope that we arm ourselves spiritually. We arm ourselves so much so that you know, as these things start to become more intense, we have the protection to make it through, you know. But the nation will survive. It will survive. It will survive. I can put my life on that. So I ask Allah to help me with this message, you know, help me with these messages, you know. These are from quite a while back, but you know, they are for today. They are for a time such as today. And we're just going to crack on with it today. You know, I don't really want to do much talking about things because, you know, I just want to share what it is that I've been learning, and, you know, and it's for the purpose of quickening us to life, to help us grow into God's mind, that we can accurately depict the times better. We can, you know, adequately describe things to ourselves, to our loved ones, to our families, to our friends, to anybody that, you know, that might need the information, that might need informing. You know, it's an hour of betrayal as well. We're going through a lot of betrayals, a lot of people betraying each other, a lot of people betraying themselves. And so, you know, we have to really get close with God today. We have to really serve him. We have to really make him the sole object of our lives. And we have to do for self as well. You know, we have to really do something for self, as Elijah Muhammad said, or suffer the consequences. So I'm a little bit tired today. I think fasting is hard today. You know, I'm having one of those days. I didn't fully hydrate myself well enough yesterday. So, you know, and you know, it's kind of like I had an episode like last week, where I was just a little bit like, something about today. It's one of them days, you know, and it's a Sunday, you know. It's not like it's a working day or anything, but it's one of them days where, you know, I'm looking at us and I'm worried a little bit. I've been worried. I've been worried, you know, because listen, I want us to be, you know, I want us to have sight, you know. I want us to have the hearing of God. I want us to have the sight of God. I want us to have, you know, I want us to see. I want us to see truth in all areas, from wherever it comes from. You know, even if it is someone that's considered, you know, nobody and not necessarily important to the world, but, you know, you never know how important somebody is to God, and you never know how important somebody is to the ultimate mission of God and his ultimate plan for things. You know, you never know. It says, be careful how you entertain strangers, for you could be entertaining angels unaware. So I think the fundamental principle of that is just always be vigilant on who shows up and who shows up in your life, and because you never know who it is, you never know of what essence they are in. You never know. You never know. You don't know what you don't know. As we said yesterday, you don't know what you don't know. So, alright. So this is from 2019, 12th of October. And, you know, as well, something I did want to mention, which I didn't mention yesterday, was that it was a dual episode yesterday of episode 12 and 13. And I made a real big meal out of the number 12, or just like it being episode 12 and relating it to number 12 and Joseph, if you remember. But, you know, I forgot that it was a combined episode, and, you know, it completely skipped my mind that, you know, chapter 13 also is the thunder, you know. And so yeah, maybe we could read a little bit of that later, or maybe there's some things in this that might benefit us in this time. So I advise you to check that out. Um, but today, since it's episode 14, we are on, or rather, chapter 14. I mean, it is episode 14, but chapter 14 in the Holy Quran is Abraham. Hey, we love Abraham. We all love Abraham. Well, we don't all love Abraham, but, you know, we should all love Abraham. Because he's the father of the faith. He's the father. You know, Abraham did such a great work. He did such a great job. Because ultimately, Abraham was the friend of God. So imagine, you know, you have your friends you can call up. You have, you know, imagine that. He was calling up the God, you know, like it was his friend, you know. We want to get to a place like that, beloved, where we can, you know, maybe we should do the first section before we begin. Oh no, we'll save it at the end, actually. We'll save it for the end, because we always end on the Quran. We always save the best till last, as they like to say. Save the best till last. It's quite interesting how they say that, isn't it? You know, Farrakhan, we've had Farrakhan at the end. Well, that just says it all, doesn't it? Alright, so, guys, we're going to go straight into it. And again, this is from quite a while back, so, and I'll try to clear up anything that comes and explain things that, you know, might come. I just need to turn my heating on a minute. Because I want to be nice and cold, I don't want to be shivering me quivers off as I'm as I'm explaining some of this. I want to be nice and comfortable. Alright, they know what I follow. They know what I aim to become. They know what I try to master, and they know what I refrain from. Though they, in their ignorance, willingly offer deviation to me, they, in their blindness, find exceptions for me, in that I would take it and do my own consciousness wrong, satisfying that which has gone astray from the straight path and that which is falsehood. I do not wish to partake in the wrongs that you delight in. I do not wish to partake in evil any more. You may not see the wrong it causes you, but I do. So I've got a hair on my work. But I do. So do not invite me to death, and do not invite me to disobedience, for I have been given confirmation from the sky. I have been given light. Through a word that is heavy to spread, live up to, and stand underneath simultaneously. If you truly wish to assist me in my life, then forget everything you think you know. You must see the impossible as just a mere spark at the end of a dark tunnel. You must lose your current understanding of reality and search for the understanding that awaits for you to start uncovering it. To continue to strive with your efforts to grasp more of the truth of your surroundings. You know, at this point in my life, I was like ripping away from things, ripping away from relationships, ripping away from environments, you know, that just really were not quite settling right with me, you know. Wasn't quite rubbing me up the right way. And, you know, I'm a very intuitive man, a very spiritual person. I'd like to think so anyway. And when something doesn't seem right, when something is just off, I just usually know, you know. And they do say, you know, it's a gut feeling, you know. And as we know, there's like 3 brains, I believe. You've got your actual mind, and then you've got your heart, and then you've got your gut. And they say, you know, they'll say, go with your gut, you know. And then they'll say, follow your heart. And then they'll say, use your mind. You know, these are like 3 brains, 3 sources of consciousness, sources of intelligence, or sources of knowing, you know, having a knowing about something. And at this point in my life, I was just sort of really analysing what people were doing, or thought they were doing in secret with me. And, you know, I was always one to try and write that down because, you know, I always thought to myself that, you know, writing it down had a value that was going to serve in some type of way. And, you know, it is and does, because at the end of the day as well, your mind is a garden, as we discussed yesterday. It's kind of a garden. It comes from the root word, or like the word kindergarten or kindergarten, which is a German word that means kind of a garden. So, you know, there's a lot of this is related to how people would try and plant things inside, and, you know, so wrong things, and they partake in wrong things and invite you to wrong things. And a lot of the times I, you know, didn't really follow up on that. And, you know, me being the heart I am, you know, always thinking like, oh well, you know, overlooking things and just trying to, but you get to a point, beloved, that you just kind of have to say, right, enough is enough. Like, I'm not, you know, I'm not going to stand for that anymore. And that you have to be able to do that. You know, it's like releasing a bird. You know, you like release the bird. I don't know what I'm talking about, but yeah, it's like releasing a bird in a way. Like, stop coming pecking on my head. Like, you know, go and peck somebody else's head. You know, but yeah. So it says, whatever you seek is seeking you. I love that. And I wrote the other day that, what did I write now? Because I believe that things happen in divine timing, and sometimes we think that, you know, I want it now. You know, people say, I want it now. Like, you know, we said that in another episode. Like, sometimes we don't understand how important patience is. I'm trying to find, I've got so many writings. Maybe I can't find it. I can't find it at this point in time. I want to get through this anyway today, but, you know, be patient all the time. With difficulty surely comes ease. Okay, seek the truth of self and the sense of self and their functions and purposes, for the knowledge of self is the truth that will set you apart from evil and will ultimately set you free. Truth, respectfully, is the only thing that understands me and acknowledges me for what I really am or am doing. Despite the connections are still the same today. You know, God is the truth, you know. But truth as a way of just comforting one's soul, you know. Truth is very comforting. Very, very comforting. Alright. Despite the connections to injustice, bewilderment and false cause that I often attempt to motivate and share divinity with, you know, I'm grateful for the challenges that stand face to face with my universal strategy. Hey, I know that I'm alone with the truth, but it seems to mirror me all the time. Attention and importance. But it seems to mirror me in the time, attention, and importance I place upon it. It's a reality I often make manifest to those who find me in direct alignment with it. I don't wish for anyone to do anything besides question, seek, comprehend, and wonder what this thing called life is really all about. To study yourself and reality to the ounces of your strength, to hopefully humble you, resurrect you, and to eradicate that which does not serve you anymore. That being ignorance, exceptions, excuses, and the internal and external evils that seem natural, ordinary and insignificant. I'm just a man that's been ordered to write down, understand, and notify everything that is inscribed and buried within the walls of my heart and soul. You know truth by the way it feels. And that's something, you know. Sometimes we, it's really interesting. Where I work now, I'm a cleaner. It reminds me of Jabril, because Jabril was a cleaner, and I'm like, when I'm always in the toilets doing him, I'm always thinking like, once upon a time, Jabril was like, you know, I think he said one day like, these are my toilets, like this is my cleaning stuff, like I'm cleaning this, and I kind of adopt the same attitude when I'm cleaning it. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna make sure these toilets, these corridors, these things are like crystal clean. But you know, truth is something like it's something that speaks to us. It really confirms something on the inside of us, and we have this relationship to truth that it's almost like its own frequency. You know, it has its own authority, and you know, sometimes we do know it by the way that it affects our internal structures of thought, internal structures of knowing or feeling, or and sometimes that can be the hardest but most greatest thing about it. Is that the hardest thing is that when it deconstructs everything on the inside, we have to then reconstruct everything on the inside, or reconstruct things which ultimately can have an effect on the outside. I always feel like I relate a lot to the phoenix. Like today I was in the coffee shop doing my drawings, finishing the phoenix rising drawing. It's on my Instagram. I was like out just going over it and stuff. But I always relate to the phoenix of basically turning to ashes, and then being born again from the ashes. It's almost like a rebirth, but that's kind of what truth is like. People expect truth to be a bit like you're on a sofa or a couch, somebody's wafting a leaf over you and feeding you, and there's a nice woman feeding you grapes. But that's not the case. That's not always the case. Truth is really gonna it's really gonna hurt sometimes. So but yeah, okay. Brothers, God gave you your first strongest lessons through your mother. You were not conscious of the lessons being given to you, but our mother, with patience, with effort, stress, and desire, encoded God-like traits, attributes, and characteristics inside of us. It's safe to say that with that mighty blessing, you have for the most part used these gifted attributes for the greater good. But God, rather than coming through our mother, has come now to give you and I our next lesson, our next understanding. But this time around, it's more intense, and you are this time conscious of the transformation within. You're in control of what you digest. I must say that through me, Allah God is speaking to you, and you absolutely know it deep down. Through me, He's giving you the key to your attributes and the way to perfect and master the attributes and traits that He encoded at the beginning of your time. God is mother for the first part of life. Mother is to be loved, honoured, and respected, for she feeds, clothes, and shelters her kin until they can roam and discover the planes of reality and planes of the mind. But see, the God that created Mother still awaits your will, worship, and attention. The God that inspired your mother to make the decisions she made is still owed a tremendous unpayable debt. A debt that through me He is asking and almost ordering you to start paying. Mother can only take you so far, but God, He can take you as far as you're willing to hold on to the truth, no matter how much it hurts, no matter what it is you must sacrifice. Expand. It says, you either hate truth or you don't love it enough to act on it. So, this is something you should know about me as well. Like, I had more so, but I do have, to some degree, a good connection and a good a relative closeness to my brothers. But when I found the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, you know, it was very, very difficult for me to accept that they wasn't necessarily going to, you know, follow him the way I, you know, sort of desired to follow him and help him, the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so, you know, I have a lot of pain about this, but, you know, to some degree it's really served me because, you know, there's been times where I feel like I've lost my brothers, but then, you know, if you look at that mathematically, you know, that makes me a perfect servant. Not perfect, I don't like saying that, but an adequate servant for, you know, for brotherhood, if that makes sense. Because the very thing that I sometimes get sad about losing or having lost, in a way, is the very thing that we as a nation promote the most, which is brotherhood and unity. And I always just feel like, you know, well, let's just say that I love the fact that we all see each other as brothers and sisters. Like, that really does. And not only that, like, God is in the mix of that as well. So, you know, where I would kind of be a little bit alien, or I'd look a little bit alien for bringing God into the equation in terms of via the teachings of the Most Honourable Elijah Muhammad and the teachings given to us by Farrakhan, where that's a little bit alien to my blood brothers, you know, in some sense. It's completely normal in the Nation of Islam. So, you know, it's really, but then it's really, really deep for me, that, because, like, then you have a duty by your brother to serve your brother. It's about being in service, then being a servant, you know. And so I just love the idea of, like, not being cast aside because you bring God to the forefront, or that you know, choose to make God the sole object of your life. Even just the things you say, the way you respond to things is, you know, God is at the focal point of it all, you know. You're always wondering, well, what do you think God would think about that? Like, how would God see that? What do you think God might do if I did that? Or, like, it's very good and it's very a wonderful thing. That's why it says in the Quran that the nation is the nation of Islam is the best nation raised among men. And the reason why it's the best is because, oh my gosh, my stomach is doing something. The reason why it's the best is because, you know, God is the sole object to which we all strive, and there's nothing more beautiful in the world to me than that. So, okay, let's carry on. Imagine trying to tell Captain America, well, this is going to be fun. Imagine trying to tell Captain America that what he was doing was wrong. Imagine trying to convince Captain America to stop saving the people. Imagine standing in his way. He isn't arrogant. He's extraordinarily focused and faithful to what he believes in. He is in a world that naturally opposes the hope he has in people, a world that seeks to destroy his faith whenever he sees an opportunity. Captain America is that certain that what he's doing is right, that he will accept being scorned, ridiculed, and even risk his own life in the possibility that the truth can be known, just so that people could be free. So, you know, that by the way, Louis Farrakhan is Captain America. So, like, and I do love Captain America, the actual character. He's my favourite Marvel character. And if you want a little fun fact right now, I'm wearing my red hoodie, and in the middle of it is my little Captain America pin of his shield, because I don't know, I love the pin. I'll ding it for you. Ready? So I'm even wearing my little cap thing, my little cap shield, and the reason why I love him, because I just love that he's just a normal guy. He was just a normal person. He was just somebody with the right heart, you know. And it's why I wear it near my heart, because sometimes I think about my own heart, and I think if we think from the heart, especially as men, it may not be easy, but it's worth it. It's very worth it. And he carries a shield. It's not a sword he carries. He carries something that defends. Like, he's got a fist, all right. He carries two of them, but you know, the main focal point to him as a hero, his heart is his greatest weapon against the enemy. His willpower, and you know, that is our teacher and our leader. His heart is his greatest, you know. His heart is where it's at. Praise be to Allah. Okay, because yeah. All right, so I've got a little bit of like I can't wait to read this. I don't know what it's going to be at the end. I've purposely just not read the end then, because it's basically, again, as I've said, there's a poetic side to me, or there's like it's an expressive side to me, and I've done like a little bit of a dialogue between the universe and you. So, universe, I'm trying to tell you something. You ignore. The universe, please, I'm trying to tell you something. You ignore. Universe, I'm trying to tell you something serious. You ignore. Universe, don't make me do something that doesn't need to happen. You ignore. The universe, fine, watch this. Moments later. You, sorry, what was you saying? Universe smiles. This is, by the way, God is like the universe in this sense. So I'll do it from God's perspective. God, I'm trying to tell you something. You ignore. God says, please, I'm trying to tell you something. You ignore. God says, I'm trying to tell you something serious. You ignore. God, don't make me do something that doesn't need to happen. You ignore. God says, right, fine, watch this. Moments later, you, sorry, what was she saying? And then God's like smiling because he's got your attention now. You know, that's all he wants, you know. God only wants you to acknowledge him. God only wants you to use your heart. See how that works? When you use your heart, it can give you sight. And you think, yeah, but it's my eyes that give me sight. It's actually not. Your eyes give you, you know, vision, you know, visibility. But sight is not always, in most cases, from the eyes. It's from the heart. It's from the core of your being. It's from the soul of your being. So, I have to always remember that, you know, as we grow. Always remember that. Okay. I bet nature misses the way it used to be. The elder humans that would protect every curve. Nature is the hidden secret to mastering reality. The unimaginable things we can do through and with nature is beyond our capacity. The guidance within nature. You know, there's something that I wrote down the other day. It was from like me creative stuff anyway. That world that I always think about, you know, fulfilling Tynetta's wish of having this grand film or whatnot, is something that will creatively inspire us to see the, you know, the origins of things. And so the being in the story is like a jet black being, and he's got like cracks down his face where tears would be, but in the cracks is like multicolored cracks, representing just like the, you know, black is not a color, it's the essence from which all color comes. But sometimes it's like the way that our spiritual colors come about, and the way our characters are made, and the way that we're forged into this work and into this, you know, into the understanding of things, is through tremendous pain and pressure. And, you know, yeah, I've kind of, there's a story in it where, like, you know, what happens twice a year, it's like a ginormous like flock of bees go about the land in a giant bunch and just start to like purify everything with the buzz of their wings. And they go in packs, and they can even split rocks with how many there are. And splitting rocks in the film is or in the story, it's quite beautiful, because inside rocks inside rocks is like benefits. It can be water, it can be a fragrance, and it can purify the land and purify, you know, nature itself, and can have within it things of use to man. And again, nature, what I'm saying here is how nature is, it's the hidden secret to mastering reality. You know, the mother wheel, which is the name or the term of the name given to the mother plane. It's a UFO, but it's basically the mother of all the little ones that may have been seen around the world. It's depicted in films such as Independence Day, like District 9, and even Star Wars and the Death Star. It's also very relative to that, like in terms of shape as well, and like just but maybe not purpose in that film. Like it's given like the enemy, it's given enemy vibes in films, but in actual reality, the wheel is a purifier, but it's also a destroyer. And again, you might say, well, it definitely is a bad guy then, isn't it? But that's not really the case. It's there is the earth carries a burden, you know, and so the earth is carrying a burden, and the earth is carrying those who are being tyrannical towards God's people, and ultimately being tyrannical towards nature. And I don't know why my bank statement is in it. Oh yeah, I've wrote on the back of it, fair enough. That's really random, but no, I just found a piece of paper in all this and didn't know. Maybe that was something I needed to find. What is on this? Hold on a minute, guys. I'm gonna read this out. Maybe it's not an accident. Ooh, they accept you dead and reject you alive. Damn. Okay, maybe I'll... Sorry for saying damn as well. I know I probably shouldn't say that. It's not a very... It's a bit of a swear word in the nation, to my knowledge, I think it is. So, but yeah, nature is just it's a beautiful point to our ultimate being raised back to a proper state and into harmony again with ourselves and with our creator. And the creator is even now using the forces of nature to get us into, you know, into get us into line, you know, get us into our essence again, our conscience again, into our worship of him again, into our remembrance of him again, into our seeing how important his being is, his being here is, his being who Allah is. You know, it says, you know, as we said before, we said it before this video, you know, he is the one whom all of us depend, but yet he is independent from us all. So, in other words, you solely depend on him. He does not depend a single bit on you. You know, every day you make a plan for tomorrow, or maybe the next week, or maybe even the month, or maybe even the next year. You make a plan, and whether you know it or not, you depend on Allah, God, the being, the master, the supreme, the most high. He, in the Quran it refers to, or Mahdi, the great Mahdi. You depend on him more than you even can fathom. So when you make plans, you are depending on a God, which is only a being with force and power. You are depending on a God to bring up that sun every single day or at that time, so that you can enjoy, what the sun gives. Every single day, that is a blessing that you receive, that we receive. You depend on foods and fruits, that grow up from the ground. That's why I thank Allah in my prayers for the foods and the fruits in which you grow up. I'm speaking to Allah when I say which you, Allah, grow up from the ground, of which we eat. And so, there's things that we don't realize how much we solely depend on Allah to provide, and we don't thank him. And the Holy Quran says, little is it that you give thanks. So we should remember Allah, remember God, because ultimately the more we forget him, the more we put him secondary, we are putting ourselves in a very dangerous position. Jesus was in the world, but he wasn't of the world. And it's the reason why, he was so different to those around him, because he had a conscience of how important God was and how insignificant he was. And the reason why he said, me and my Father are one, is because when you accept that reality of how much of nothing you are, you have then become a perfect vessel for him to pour into. And like Abraham, you become a friend of God, and God becomes your friend. And that's why, for the majority of it, prophets, they spent time alone, and they didn't mind being alone because they knew that they weren't alone. So, and because they had a friend in God. There's that song, you got a friend in me. That's what God's singing all the time. Like, you got a friend in me. Like, And if we only knew that he was only a prayer away, they say a stone's throw. They say a stone's throw away. And there's a scripture that says, or there's a hadith, pardon me, maybe it is a hadith, but I mean it's definitely something. It says, if you were to walk to me, if you were to take like one step, I would take two, or if you were to walk to me, I would run to you. So it's beautiful language, and it's beautiful, especially as a lyricist and as a writer. I find it very beautiful that God would paint the picture that if we were to do just very little for him, he would do much more than the little that we've given him. Or like, I'll give you it another way. He says, it says in the Holy Quran, is there anyone who would loan Allah a goodly loan that he may multiply it for him? And then, 10 times over, I believe it says somewhere in the Quran, he multiplies us. He multiplies the... he multiplies, he's a multiplican. He's a multiplier. Praise be to Allah. I mean, the Most High is not... There's only one God, beloved. There's only one of us that is the Most High, that is we call it in the Nation of Islam the Supreme Being. He's the Supreme Being. There's a lot of beings There's not a lot of human beings, but there's a lot of beings, on the earth. But but he's the most high of them. He's the most wisest of all the human beings. He is the most powerful, and this is where we go into his attributes, And, I found it very interesting that Master Fard Muhammad, Farad, which is when you roll the R, it becomes Farad, like Fard. I can't roll my tongue as well, but as other people. But I found it very interesting that Farad was a name outside of the attributes, and I found that, and I find that very interesting, and it's very beautiful that Allah would give us something outside of the attributes, and again, not to digress on that, but his attributes are like amazing. One day I could do a video, or maybe I should write them down. I always try to remember as many attributes as I can in my prayers, and I try to do them off the dome, as they say. I try to freestyle it, like freestyle as many as I can remember, because I just love stuff like that. Anyway, all right. So where was we up to? Nature. We went from nature to the attributes. So praise be to Allah. All right. Nature is trying so hard to be light for a world that has its heart covered in darkness. Nature is the secret to the world, but rather than being in harmony with the laws of nature, we continue to break the law of nature willingly with mighty wit and deception. So, the people, think that they can deceive God. Oh, don't ring me now. People think that they can deceive God, and it's not going to happen, because God is ultimately, it says in the Holy Quran, they seek to deceive Allah and they only deceive themselves and they perceive it not. So, and obviously, and a lot of these learning curves and these lessons that I wrote down, or these observations that I've made, came from me inviting people and me trying to be skillful with trying to invite to a word, a man, a mission, a truth that would ultimately serve them like than any other thing in the universe has and will ever serve them, and has served them, And so, it's very interesting, like nature's trying to be a light for the world that has its heart covered in darkness. Nature is the secret to the world. But rather than being in harmony, I'll say it differently. I'll start with God. You ready? God is trying so hard to be light for the world that has its heart covered in darkness. God is the secret to the world, but rather than being in harmony with the laws of God, we continue to break the law of God willingly with mighty wit and deception. You see how nature and God is like simultaneous in that statement, in that little paragraph of words. So, and then it says, how long will we ignore Earth's cry? How long will we indulge in Pharaoh's way of life? That's on time. I admire how much humans want to be right even when they are wrong. I wonder what society would be like if it was right. And I remember I would have sort of arguments with my father sometimes about like the utopian society. Like he would always say, well, that'd be utopia, wouldn't it? And I'm kind of like, in my mind, I'm sort of like, that is a beautiful thing. It's not such a bad thing to have, a utopia. I tell you what does utopia actually mean? I'm now very interested in what that means. So, what does utopia mean? To me, it just means like complete harmony and no, utopia meaning. An imagined place or state of things in which everything is perfect. Yeah, paradise, heaven, seventh heaven, bliss, nirvana, Garden of Eden. Yeah. So, do you know? Yeah. So, I mean, it's almost as though some people just like are so in the dark that even just the idea, or even discussing the idea, or even have to face the reality of the reality, not idea, but the reality of the reality of heaven in our midst. And just in the prophecy and in what is written, it's very much like people's hearts are blind to it. People really don't believe that this is going to change for the better. They really don't think that God is a God that, is a God that would come back to turn us back to the straight path. And I can reason to a point, because Kendrick Lamar said something really powerful. He said, I'd rather live like there was a God than reach like death's door and find out there really is. And so it's a very interesting thing that people would choose it's not even the easy option. It's like choosing the darker, the more depressive, the more painful idea. To them it's an idea. For me, it's a reality. But for them, they choose the more painful idea because the reality is painful. So, and it's just really something to me that, and I always sort of think about the Quran when it says, what is the matter? Such and such and such. Because really, sometimes I really think that, like, when a man is displaying that he has become God and we try to assassinate that man, from Martin Luther King to, Malcolm X to the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan, however they choose to try and assassinate him, that is. But either way, they just have this thing with people who try to get us into a better understanding of things and it's like shedding light on a situation. People just seem to be offended by that, and they say it's there's a saying that it irritates demons and stuff like that, and truth really does, and hope really does, and love really does, because people have lived in woe for so long, in so much pain for so long, that it's like any glimmer of hope is like frowned upon, because it's almost like, I'll give you another example from, not to bring it back to like superhero world, but there's a point in it's Endgame, I believe it is, and it's when Hawkeye, he's the bow and arrow guy, the purple bow and arrow person. He like never misses a shot, and he basically, from the first film, the part one, the Avengers Infinity War, everybody gets like clicked and snapped, and everybody disappears, if you've known. In other words, he goes through a period of pain that is so traumatic. He loses his family, he loses everything, and he becomes like a murderer, or like he goes around now giving justice to like bad people that are still alive, that didn't vanish, and he thinks that they deserve to justice needs to be served, and he will be the hand of which justice is served and stuff. And he really loses himself doing that. But then watch this bit, you ready? His friend, who is Natasha Romanoff, she is Black Widow, who's like the superhero, like she's like a girl superhero in it, but she's friends with him, and she comes to save him, and he says something very interesting. He's turned. They're in the rain first and foremost, so they're having this like moment in the rain where just he's throwing it down, and he's killed this guy, and you can tell he's just full of so much pain. And she says, "There's hope." She says something like, "Yeah, no." She says something like, "I think we've got something." And he says, "You ready for this?" He says, "Don't give me hope." And then she says, "I'm sorry I couldn't have brought it to you sooner." But when you're in that state of mind of that guy, Hawkeye, in that state, people have gone through so much pain, they don't even want to know about hope. They don't even want to know about a better path. That to them is like death all over again. And it's very sad. It is very, very sad that people are in that place. And, it's like people really do need that today. And the people that are giving it, and love to give it and have what it takes to give it, they do think to themselves, "Man, I wish I could have gave it to you sooner. I wish I could have done things a little bit sooner. I wish I was, and that's why the Honourable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, like, why didn't you choose me? But he wasn't even born when when the Saviour chose Elijah Muhammad. So, if you're not keeping up with it, then I do apologise in what I'm saying, because I'm alternating between fiction and whatnot. But there's a lot of things that film can teach us, and for the most part, people find a lot of comfort in, and I really do understand that, and I do get that. I really do relate to it. I mean, I watch Captain America, and I tear up because, just to be a savior, just the idea of a savior, and a saving force, or a side, or a person, or a scenario that can save people. It's really valuable in a world that has a lot of people in it that need saving. So. So anyway, okay, I'm in a very strange but marvellous place of creation, in a deep process on a colourful circuit that holds both a wound and medicinal value to the electrical current that is travelling around this motion of extraordinary magnificence. I am the electrical current. Some are observing me and learning through what I have felt comfortable expressing, and some are just staring at me on this crazy journey and wonder, what is he becoming? Yes, not changed. It's not changed, brother. I swear to God, man. So, someone someday will appreciate my efforts to elevate them. Someone someday will appreciate my drive to be a productive, righteous man, although there is none good but the Father. Someday, someone will admire the amount of wisdom I have inscribed, and that person will be truly blessed. Well, I hope it's not just somebody. I hope there's quite a few. I mean, but the Saviour said if you save one, you've saved all of humanity, so that's doesn't change really. Alright. Your priorities are wrong, so I ain't wasting my time or energy on you. I'm obviously moody about something here in this write-up. I'm on a mission that can't afford to be dealing with that frequency of thought. I'm on some revolutionary world-shifting motive. I'm making moves. I'm writing future tunes from looting truth that will move the roots of youth in accordance with righteous bloom. Sometimes you just gotta laugh, innit? Sometimes you just gotta laugh at yourself and just be like, yeah, man, that's what it be like. That's what it be like in. Alright. Whether you are in God or not, I know for a fact that He is inside of you right now, whopping your beep into shape. He's gonna keep judging you and lashing you through your own mind until you see Him, until you recognize your debt, the debt you owe to Him. I'm in the Lord right now, so I'm sorry if it's my time or my gift that you seek. I'm leveling up for myself, my future, and you if it makes it any better. My energy has to leave, you're desiring more. It's a difficult consistency, especially when it requires distance from the ones you love most. But to the difficult we march. I'm in natural acceptance of my light and dark, and a lyrical prince on a planet of kindled souls in various dwell. Again, I can put it in such a poetical way sometimes. Again, this is me from a real good while back. But you know, as you can see, I've always thought of like my purpose is very like royal. I don't mean to put myself on a pedestal, but it's almost like if you could see the way I see my destiny, or just see the way I see how much I believe in me, it's like royalty in itself. I just believe that I can do something. I can make an impact. I believe, you know, that it's like Joseph, like, that's why I was going to mention Joseph yesterday and go into his story, because there was just something about that brother that he wouldn't allow the world to take that away from him, his faith. He wouldn't let none of it go. Like, he was just like, yeah, well, I'm doing this. Do you know what I mean? Sorry for being so. I've had a bit of one of those days today. So sorry for being so like emotional about stuff. You know, we're all human. We all, for the most part, it's not easy to do every single day. You know, I'm revisiting things that I've never revisited before, and you know, you are genuinely getting the real report on me seeing these and revisiting these for the first time. You know, I didn't have time to dwell on it when it came. I didn't feel like I did anyway. I just felt like I had to give my life and give it fast. And yeah, there was a lyric I was trying to think of. What was it now? My brother knows that lyric as well. Studying fast, I'm on a different class. I don't know what it is, but you know, I always knew that I could use my speed in this. I think I spoke to you about this in another episode. I remember thinking to myself, like, the speed that you know, because I gave up football and I gave up like playing sports and stuff like that. But I always thought, well, if I'm not running anymore, if I'm not playing football anymore, I can still use the principles of that, or what I love to do in that, to aid him who deserves all our help, all our support. That it might quicken us to life. So, and let's go again. I'm being such a wimp today, aren't I, guys? But this is what happens when you revisit your old self. Sometimes you look at it, and you're like, boy, oh boy. But then other times you're like, you brave son of a gun, you know. It's, so, yes, I'm very bold in some senses in my writings. I try to empty myself as best I can. How am I ever going to tell you the truth if you prefer the lie? So these are just a few little statements that I've got here, and then it says, it's hard to give somebody something when they are not showing love or respect or even emotions for that matter. I think emotions sometimes are really, really the hardest thing to overcome. 1 minute, let me just get some tissue. Yeah, like, emotions are not necessarily what makes you not human. No, sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about. When you have emotions, it's not that you're like weak or anything, and it's not like you don't want to be like an emotionless person, because then you really are on Elon Musk's, you might as well go and work for Elon Musk, be a robot, be one of his robots or something. But flipping, or what was I talking about? But yeah, sometimes it's good to weep, It's good to embody what you're in. But it is better probably to control them and that. But Farrakhan is such a bold and strong man, because the amount of times that he says things on that rostrum, that I think you are so strong to say that and not go off in terms of like into your emotions and stuff, and just into how that affects you in your emotion. He's got some composure that I can only learn from him and take notes and take a leaf out of his book. I'm really trying, but he's a hard man to replicate. He's a hard man to, well, not hard in that sense. He's a wonderful man to follow, but I mean, he's made by God, like he's handmade, like, so I just love him. Okay, I became a man when my heart met Farrakhan's. That's what the next thing is. And let me tell you, his heart it's close. It's close. It's close to God's, beloved. It's very close. It's very, very powerful. It's, I think it's the scripture of David. They talk about how David had a heart after God. That was it. He had a heart after God. I might need to cut this short today, because I don't want to go on if I'm just going to keep melting after every single thing that I say. Sometimes I yearn for the attention I will one day receive. See, like, when Farrakhan was in that basement. When Farrakhan was in that basement. Farrakhan was in that basement for 7 years, writing and planning how to resurrect the nation. He was probably going through the motions. It's like that song by Drake. I guess that's just emotions. Do do do, do do do, do do do, dum dum do do, do do do, do do. Well, I guess that's just emotion. So yeah, he was probably thinking, but that's faith speaking again, I'm like, I know I'm going to receive it, because I know I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to let this man drop, I speak to you, yeah, on this broadcast, but I've got a picture of him in front of me in his swan song garment, because I think, what was it? I was talking, yeah, I was on a website and it said, oh, you can get some free pictures. So I was like, free pictures? I was like, yeah, I'll get a free picture. So I was going through my camera album of all the things that I could just get a free picture of just from this art website. They were doing free pictures and whatnot, free prints, that's it. And I got them of the minister, and so I've got this one here, and he's in his swan song. It's a wonderful picture. It's a wonderful picture, beloved. And he's on the rostrum, and he's just smiling, and he's wearing my favourite colour as well. It's my favourite lecture. He's wearing my favourite colour. It's just my favourite. It's just my favourite. He's my favourite man. So everything's just my favourite. So we're nearly at the end, guys. We've got 3 more pages to do, and then we're gonna break fast because we're starving, Marvin. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're not. I'm gonna try not to say that again. That we're starving, because I don't like to say that, because there are people that are genuinely starving, and I don't want to, lessen that they're suffering by my being really ungrateful that I've got more than you could ever dream of having. When you relate it to a lot of people, like Gaza, for instance, So let us just be grateful for what we have, and the lives in which we live, and the access of food that we have access to, and let us be thankful to Allah for that, for sure. Okay, this one is live as a being of light. We're going to surely try to. Okay. The universe is expanding as you read. Its primary nature as a universe is law, motion, and mathematics. Go away. We as humans are not only the reflections of the Creator himself, but we are a reflection of the universe, as there are many compounds and elements within the universe that can also be found inside of us. That's true. We have gold inside of us. We have iron inside of us. Well, I hope we do. We need to be checking our iron levels, and I'm pretty sure a jacket potato is iron. So if you've not, yeah, get your jacket potatoes in. So, yeah, they're all the components. That's it. Compounds, components of the universe you'll find are within us. I think not only is this such a beautiful fact to know, but this also supports that the black man is God. Because if God is self-created, and God fashioned himself, as we're taught in the nation, in triple darkness, using, he was in a womb fashioning himself. That means that, the very compounds of himself didn't come from the universe, but the universe, or the compounds of the universe, came from self. Slow motion on that one. So, that's a proof that Elijah Muhammad is teaching the truth when he says that the black man is God, because the very elements that you see billions and trillions of miles away, they're just underneath, And that's a really beautiful thing to think on if you're trying to engage in this study and trying to learn with us and all that jazz. So think upon the following analogy. The cat, despite our poor attempt at civilization, is living and moving according to the law in which it was created. The sun revolves not even a degree out of its set motion, and therefore follows a law in which it was created. And the 2 oceanic bodies of water, Pacific and the Mediterranean, one sweet and one bitter, do not intercede past the barrier that is between them. Why? Why is it that every living thing on the planet Earth knows instinctively what it needs to do in its life to sustain its life correctly, to its most desired standard, except the almighty human being? Read that again. It says, But you know, listen to that again. Try listen to everything that was said there again. If you like new to the study and you're of maybe you're perhaps somebody that has this indwelling knowing that you know there's a bit more to us than we've been told, you know, that can really help you. And we have a nature, you know, and I think I said in another episode, you know, everything in creation, when it's doing something, it wants to get it done. You know, if the sloth is climbing the tree, you know, he's climbing the tree. If the, you know, if the cat is chasing the mouse, he wants to get the mouse. Like, he's trying his best, like, and he will get it done. If the tree is growing through, you know, a difficult place in the earth, but it's not, you know, been cut off or anything like that yet, it's still going to push, you know, it's going to push through a difficult environment. Everything in nature, it seems to want to continue and thrive and get the job done. Whereas the human being is like, you know, what are we really trying to do in harmony with our nature? It's almost as though we've forgotten, whilst everyone, or rather everything else and every other creation knows what it's doing, but we don't know what we're doing. So, which is what makes men of God so valuable, because they help us guide ourselves. Well, they help guide us back to ourselves. Praise be to Allah. Okay, because everything except us submit to the eternity of mathematics. Yeah, so yeah, we forgot that mathematics is Islam and Islam is mathematics. We forgot the mathematics of our makeup, our being. And so we just need to learn the maths again. And people think maths is numbers. It's really not. It's really, you know, there's a mathematics to how we breathe, you know. That's the maths right there. That's the real maths. Not 1 + 1 is 2. I mean, that's very basic maths in some sense, but the real maths is on a deeper, much deeper level. Okay. As great as we are not aware of and are not following our law. Therefore, until we seek, find, and follow our law of what this life is correctly, we will always be subject to divergence from our higher selves. Is that the word? Divergence? Diverting, I meant. I think that's because divergence is like, I think divergence is a different word. But yeah, I mean that we will always be subject to diverting from our higher selves and therefore become a curse to everything that is in sound obedience to its law. See, we've lost our law. Our law is obeying God. We will fall short of our own potential and we will eventually fall away from the architect of all law, and that is God. That's if we don't, you know, find our purpose for being here. And we don't really, it's not about finding it. Sometimes it's about accepting it. And, okay. We are not individual, we are one. Well, we are an individual, but I think when I say we, that's the real critical word in that, is the we. So we are not individual, we are one. And as one, as a collective, we're tearing this place and ourselves apart from the inside out. Just look at the world. You are my witness to our madness, collectively. And if you can look me in the eyes truly and tell me that we are not due any karma or any recompense for our ignorant actions as a whole, then I'm praying. I don't like saying that, but it says, then I'm praying for God's wrath to come sooner. Just to show you how infinitesimally small you really are in comparison to the laws that govern the universe. We play with dangerous clockwork as the time keeps running out. For every action, there is a reaction. There's a lot of, like, there's one thing that somebody who is informed, somebody who is wise, will never do, particularly like the prophets and stuff. Farrakhan, great example. He, has the power, whether you take it or let it alone, but he has the power to bring down the wrath of God. But he will never call for it, because I believe it's something goes a little bit like this. Allah's mercy precedes his wrath. It's like his mercy overcomes his wrath. His mercy is greater than his wrath. Or his mercy is greater than his... Do you know what I mean? I hope you get what I'm saying when I say that. So we have to adopt a similar mindset. If somebody does us wrong, we have to really try our best to, to be merciful, to be understanding, to say, that's not necessarily what defines you, but we have to do, forgiveness doesn't always mean re-entry in some situations. Like, you can forgive someone but then say, but I do think it's best that we stay apart and stuff, and that's completely understandable. So I'm in and out of light and dark, writing everything down, getting some major signs. It's pretty mad tiring, and I need to learn how to be human again. Or rather, I need to learn to not always go so fast and so directly at something. This universal God awakening that's coming from within me is an energy that is shifting me fast, sending me down a rabbit hole that I'm not even sure even ends. No, it doesn't end, brother. You're gonna be emptying yourself all your days, brother. And that's something that I think I wanted to mention there, is that when things get hard, we usually cop out. And what I'm saying here is that I'm in and out of me light and dark, but I'm writing everything down. And I think that's what makes the pen so valuable to me personally. And really, to those that understand maybe poetry and understand how to let it go, or like get something off your shoulders, or maybe if it's go in the gym, to have an outlet is you're very blessed to have an outlet if you do have one today. But I always found that, and like today's a good example, you don't always feel up to it, you don't always feel like you have them days, don't you? The minister said you go up and down, you're in and out, but it's your attitude, and it's just the way you go through it. Go through it like Joseph and Joel and Job and Muhammad, peace be upon him, and Jesus. Always go with it thinking, well, you know, well, just it's a very positive well, isn't it? Oh, that's a thought. I was writing today. Speaking of the well, I was doing a write-up today, or I'm going to do a write-up soon, about how many times that wells are mentioned, like not in the well I was on about then, but an actual well. So Joseph was thrown down a well, and then there's other instances where wells are mentioned, like in scripture this is, and like Jesus and the woman at the well, and I believe there's another one. But I just found it interesting how and Moses as well was also near a well or something. But either way, Abraham as well. I think he was digging up wells or something, or he was doing something, and his son had to dig it or something. Again, I'm still sort of looking at this, but I'm trying to seek and extract its spiritual meaning, and it usually is or from what I can see, it's like God. And Gideon as well. Gideon, how he was separating the wheat from the tare, not on top of the mountain. He was doing it in the bottom of a well, which is very interesting. It's all very, very interesting to me as a studier, because I just try to look with my spiritual eye at what God is telling us and what God might see about a hard time, and how he uses a hard time to affect a hard time. You know, a hard time. There's so much you could do with this, but I don't want to confuse you guys, but yeah, just think over it. I'm gonna have that write up done as soon as possible, as I usually do. I go at lightning speed. I'm trying to go at lightning speed, because I know the times. I mean, the time is the time. It needs fixing, and I'm on it. Don't worry. Okay. Inshallah. Okay, you sometimes have to find a purpose for things that have no relevance to you, simply because those things could resonate real good with someone else. Techniques that don't work for you might work well with other people. Now, master scribes are those that ink down what others may need to grow. A father is one who goes farther into the future for the wisdom that exists there, to then bring it back to his kin and his world in his time of life. By seeking wisdom, you give everybody else an opportunity to travel the realms of this mind we have. And by making sense of your own individual journey, you give others the opportunity to tap into their journey out of pure inspiration. Work out problems that you haven't got for others that have got them. If you want to help people listen to them, then look for the answers to their equations, and at a good time feed them the answers to their equations, but show you're working out, it says, lest they think you're an alien or something. Yeah, like, Minister's so good at this. We've got one more page, by the way, and it's only got half writing on it, so we're nearly there. But and then we'll do the chapter that we was gonna do, the Thunder, I think it was. But yeah, what I was gonna say, yes, it's good to Farrakhan, praise be to Allah. He is so good at breaking things down in such a wonderful way that is so digestible. It's so pleasant. It's not overbearing. It's just so weighted perfectly. You know how, like, say, for instance, like, you could say, well, you pass us that, and then somebody will throw it to you, but they could throw it, they've got no sense of weight with what they're throwing, so you might find somebody might throw it too hard, or somebody might not throw it too hard enough, so they throw it too soft and it hits the floor and you don't catch it. Or if it's too hard, it hits you in the head. Well, the minister is like, he's like a master at handing you something and it being a perfect weight for you to not just catch it, but just like, like how you can cushion a thing into your hands. Well, he does the same thing for you spiritually and mentally. He like gives you such a good weighted throw. He always said that he was not the father that threw a ball, but maybe if you understood the kind of ball that he throws, maybe he can one day see that he was the greatest father that he could have ever been. Praise be to Allah. He knows how blessed he is. I don't need to pray that he knows that. In fact, it's probably got him. He's probably gone through so much of his life at certain points, especially the beginning, having to really struggle to hold himself down, But he's able to really love himself now and love everything because he's fought the good fight. He's fought the good fight and now is laid up for him a crown. And he's been a wonderful father to us and a wonderful father of the house. He was entrusted to be a father over the house by his father, the Honourable Elijah Muhammad. So He's so wonderful. Anyway, we're nearly there. So it says, your works act by means of healing you within. Your music, your actions, your ideas, your friends, family, lovers, girlfriends, pets, experiences, pretty much every single encounter that is present or has been present in your life has occurred to remind you of the great internal work that, if left unacknowledged, can feel like a piece of you is missing or like something isn't right. So, learn to accept that you need healing in some way. Nobody out here is complete. Trust. One of the most important skills to master is knowing how to pay attention. But having said this, whatever you feel isn't worth your attention, be respectful, stay planted, be patient, and observe the results. Saturday's glide. Saturday's glide. I don't know what I'm talking about there. Saturday's glide. Stupid. Everything's a lesson. Lyricalize. Yeah. That was today's write up. So I appreciate you listening again. And gosh, if you've been listening to this today, there's another little thing here, but I'm not reading all that out. Hold on. Yeah, I'm not doing all this now. I'm not doing that now. We had a super long episode yesterday, and you're probably having to chop that into pieces because, yeah, it was very long anyway. It was long. It was a long journey. That was like going about the Lake District in year 5. You were just knackered probably after the end of that. But so, what was we going to end on? We was going to end on the Quran, or we were going to do some of the Quran, weren't we? Okay. So, chapter 13, making up from yesterday, and in fact, no, we were going to do Abraham. What am I talking about? Yeah, I was going to say, if I did not already say, that we didn't do the thunder yesterday. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason for that. I don't know. But we're doing Abraham today because it's episode 14. So I think we're just going to do this every time. We're going to end with the Quran anyway. But Abraham and we've mentioned Abraham a couple of times as well in this. So, yes, we're going to go into Abraham. So, section 1. Revelation dispels darkness. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I, Allah, am the Seer, a book which we have revealed to thee, that thou mayest bring forth men, by their Lord's permission, from darkness into light, to the way of the Mighty, the Praised One, of Allah, whose is whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth, and woe to the disbelievers for the severe chastisement, those who love this world's life more than the hereafter, and turn away from Allah's path, and would have it crooked, those are far astray. And we sent no messenger but with the language of his people, so that he might explain to them clearly. Then Allah leaves in error whom he pleases, and he guides whom he pleases, and he is the mighty, the wise. And certainly we sent Moses with our messages, saying, bring forth thy people from darkness into light, and remind them of the days of Allah. In this are surely signs for every steadfast, grateful one. And when Moses said to his people, call to mind Allah's favour to you, when he delivered you from Pharaoh's people, who subjected you to severe torment, and slew your sons, and spared your women, and therein was a great trial from your Lord. Praise be to Allah. I love this chapter. I love Abraham's chapter. I really do. The number 14's been following me as well a bit. You know, like maybe you can relate. You might not relate. You might relate, but sometimes you have numbers that just follow you, and 14 has been one of them numbers for me. as of recent sort of past 2 weeks, I don't know why, I just keep seeing 14 everywhere. Just 1 and 4. 1 and 4 just seem to just do their thing. Do your thing. But thank you guys for this. I hope you're all. What time is it? Oh my god, I can probably eat. I can probably eat. Yes, I can. Oh my gosh, I can eat. It's literally right now. Oh my god, this has ended at 5:33, and the fast. Well, the fast yesterday was officially over at 5:33. So what great timing that is. Most likely it'll be probably like 36 or 37. I don't know, because it keeps getting later, doesn't it? It's what I think. This is the thing about Ramadan, guys, is that it starts off, relatively easy, even though it's not really easy, but it starts off relatively easy because, the sun sets earlier, but then as the Ramadan goes on, it gets later in the evening and it gets more difficult, and you're scratching your eyeballs out and all that stuff. No, you're not really. You're loving it. Come on. You're all loving it, really. Come on. Yeah, this came to mind as well. My voice, right, is made to be very loud, but I try to be very, like I've got a proper loud voice. So I'm sorry if it comes across very croaky sometimes, especially today. I've had a bit of a day, haven't I? And I'm also very mindful of the people I live with as well. I don't like to be one of them loud people. I'm not a loud person, but I do think when it comes to I just, you know what it is. I'll tell you a little secret. I don't know why I think this, but one day I believe I'm going to release one of the greatest Allahu Akbars in the history of the world. Like, I always just picture it. I always just envision it. I always just picture myself screaming. Not screaming, but just screaming, but really belting it. Really, really belting. There's been moments where I walk home, yeah, and where I walk home from work is in the middle of nowhere. I'm looking at fields, there's nobody around. And sometimes I've tried to see what decibels I can go to with it, but I never reach the decibel. But I always think about how I'm saving it for when I'm with the believers. I don't know why. I just always picture there being a war to be won. I always picture there being a physical fight, and that I just picture. I'm so stupid sometimes, but I just think about how there's still a way to go, and to be honest, I don't know. You don't know what you don't know, do you? But then you have a purpose, don't you? And you have a reason for being here, and I just sometimes think about that, and I think about my future, and I think about what I'm willing to give, and I think about the minister and what he's given, what the messenger has given, what the minister and the messenger have set up and built. And I think about when the minister goes, I think about these things. I think about how we're all going to be okay, and I really want to serve. It's there's a film. Oh, it's Captain America as well. He wants to just be in the army, but he's so small and so weak, and everyone thinks he's so puny and stupid. No, maybe not that, but no, they always don't even consider him for being a soldier. So, but there's another film called Hacksaw Ridge. It's one of my favourites. It's probably one of my favourite films. Yeah, it's definitely my favourite. up there my favourite films. My favourite one's Django, but well, it's Django or what's the other one? Good Will Hunting's up there as well. Yeah, I've got loads of good films, but yeah, Django's probably my favourite. But there's a bit in it where, you know, in Hacksaw Ridge where, you know, he's so like he goes like to go get one more. You know, there's that bit where he just says, no, maybe one more. Maybe I can get one more. And just the heart of that, the just like giving it another try is really, God loves a trier. God loves a trier. He loves a trier. You know, he loves those that give it a go, you know. Strive, it says, striving to be upright to him who originated the heavens and the earth. You know, that means fighting against your own self, not just the jihad of external jihad, but mainly the internal jihad, which people always get messed up, and they always start looking at Muslims like we're some absolute warmongers or something, but we're really not. We're really quite peaceful. But we, yeah, well, I don't mean to be digressing so much today, guys, but it's probably been a lot of time as it is, but it's been a pleasure to you know, reveal some of this stuff to you, and I'm just your brother, just your servant, just one who is trying to do a good work for the Master and hopefully help you in your minds. And you know, I want to help Farrakhan. Sometimes I see it in his eyes, he needs help. I see it in his, just see him. I see him, and I feel very lucky, and it's just a beautiful thing, guys, to be, you know, of those who, and by the way, for those who are in study guide, who do listen to this, if you are listening, I didn't make it to study guide on Friday, and that was intended. I wasn't quite ready to come back. I did say that last time I mentioned study guide, but I've got a feeling I'm gonna be there. I'll be there next Friday. So I've been asked to come back and stuff, and yeah, we all go through our little things, and I hope that I can, you know, I hope I can be a better brother than I've ever been in all the other times, and you know, I'm striving to be a good example of what we teach, not just in the study guide, but when I've been there, but also, you know, after I leave. Allah knows. Allah knows I'm really trying to be a servant to you. But I'm very, I'm starving, man. No, I can't say that. I need to stop saying that. I'm hungry. I am peckish. I am fancying a piece of toast. So I want to break fast. And I hope to see you tomorrow for episode 15. Should we see what 15 is? Chapter? In fact, I think it's The Rock. I'm pretty sure. I'm starting to get good at remembering what certain chapters are now. 15 is The Rock. I'm pretty sure it is. Come on, is my knowledge getting better here? Come on, Jacko. It is The Rock. The Rock is cooking. The Rock is cooking. Alright, well, it's been a pleasure to be a brother and servant. Same again tomorrow, if it be Allah's will, inshallah. Thank you for sticking with me, if you're still with me. And pray for Ishmael that he delivers the message that we need to hear on the 26th. Still not got the date for that, but I'm pretty sure it's the 26th, which is Saviour's Day. And happy Saviour's Day to everybody, and have a blessed night, and God bless. Praise be to Allah.